Welcome, Sagittarius, to your Sagittarius August 2021 reading and forecast. Hi, I'm Nigel Saint James. For those of you who are just stopping by for the first time, and for the subscribers, my great affection to you, as always. I love doing these readings for you each month and hearing from you as to whether you enjoy them or not. It gives me a great deal of pleasure, and I hope you get a lot of pleasure out of it as well. Well, obviously, some of you certainly do, but you tell me so, and that's great. And of course, I've done some readings for a few of you certainly in the last 12 months, but in the last month. So if you'd like a private reading, just check out the info in the description box. But have a look at the website anyway. Not selling anything there. And have a look at the information that I've put together for you on clairvoyance and on astrology. I think that you in particular, with your interesting, acute, philosophical mind, will find it fascinating, if I do say so myself. Well, as a Sagittarian, you'll understand that it's hard to be humble when you are so great. So let's get something underway, shall we? Now, as is our usual practice, by the way, I might use a pen to point out a couple of esoteric images if they come up, because on some of the cards they do. And I'll explain what they might mean. But let's get the 5 cards, because 5 is all we need. And there is the 4 of Cups. If we used any more than the 4 of Cups, there's the 2 of Swords. Fascinating. And what is this one here? The 9 of Discs. That's good to see. What is this? The 2 of Wands. And what might there be from? Let's go from down here somewhere, shall we? What might this one be? Do you know what that is? What's that? 5 of Swords on the way out. Well, why don't you come, as is our practice, sit down next to me. We'll have a good close look at a lot of blue in this, good close look at the cards together while I do the reading for you. Then let me just move over a bit, give you some room to see. You should be able to see now. Okay, the central energy is Earth, the 9 of Discs. Earth gets on well with fire, it gets on well with water, it does not get on well with swords. And in fact, this 9 of Discs is pushing this 5 of Swords out of the picture for you, where it's placed. But let's have a look at it first, shall we? Because I think it's saying to you, if you are in a state of mind, don't worry, because there's so many good things coming through for you. And here we have the suit of the... Now, I don't know why developers put stupid names in on things, because the meanings of cards, of course, differ depending where they're placed and what other energies are around them. But here, anyway, we have the 5 of Swords, and it is Venus ruling the first decan of Aquarius, that 22nd of January to the 29th of January. Well, Venus rules Taurus, which is an earth sign. But here we have Venus ruling an air sign in Aquarius. And these two are at odds with each other. Venus is a lover and not a fighter, whereas Aquarius is a rebel ruled by Uranus, co-ruled by Saturn. And Aquarius is a fighter, usually for causes. So the individualistic, dispassionate nature of Aquarius clashes with Venus, the planet of relationship. Now, Venus is also overwhelmed, I think, by this number 5. Numerologically, I have the planet of Mars associated with the number 5. So we have Mars and Venus together, and Venus is overwhelmed by the fiery and dispassionate nature of Mars. So we don't have astrological harmony in this card. Now, just to pull it out a little bit there so we can see it. These are the backs of the cards, incidentally. Now, here we have in the painting here, the card shows the white dove of Venus. Doves are associated with Venus, under attack by a dark bird of prey for Aquarius, resembling, well, what would you call that, a raven or a crow, perhaps? The dove was carrying a message in the form of a rose, as you can see here, but the rose has been utterly destroyed or torn asunder and falling. Now, the dove had built its nest in what it thought was a secure square form, but it had lowered its defenses and built from 4 broken swords. You can see them round the end there. In peacetime, perhaps, the swords had been broken up, but now the nest comes under sinister attack. It presented an easy target for the raven or raptor or crow, whatever the bird is, as shown by the large, dark, and disruptive sword here. This 5th sword, coloured red, for Mars, I would say, which totally overpowers the 4 broken swords and breaks into the nest. Now, the humanitarian sign of Aquarius, ruled by peace-loving Venus, is no match for Mars here. And perhaps in the element of air, Aquarius is an air sign, there is something of a, well, I wouldn't call it a mental weakness on your behalf, but perhaps it's just a fuzzy thinking that perhaps gives you feelings of defeat before you've even started things. Now, as an aside, you might be interested to know, and whatever your thoughts of Catholic popes may be, John Paul II, who was the predecessor to the current Pope Francis, John Paul began an annual tradition of releasing white peace doves on the last Sunday in January to symbolize the need to pray and work for world peace. Now, interestingly, the date of the last Sunday in January falls in the first decan of Aquarius, which is exactly this card here. Unfortunately, the tradition had to be discontinued when crows immediately and violently attacked the white doves that were released, just moments after they were released from the hands of participating children. The doves were dismembered, triggering all sorts of end times speculation, and of course to the great upset of the little children involved. Really, more what's going on here, I think, is not the question of defeat, but it's actually an element of fear. I think that is the essential element here, which is distorting your present view and your view of the unknown in your future. And this is represented, I think, by the symbology in this card. It is fear. It is not defeat. Now, the 5 of Swords can relate to a betrayal or a sneak attack by someone you trust and do not suspect as your enemy. They could be a jealous person who is sabotaging you behind your back. Your fear could be the result of losing control emotionally due to previous hurts from relationships, or it could be connected with the workplace. We've had an experience that stops you from expressing yourself fully as your confidence has been lost. But you understand, if you let go of fear, then the energy which is built up in this nest will burst forward, showering you with opportunity and glory. Very often this fear comes about because of things that we have done or failed to do, or things that are broken in the past, like relationships, so that we are really unable to forgive ourselves because we didn't stand up for ourselves, or we didn't act in a certain way when, with the benefit of hindsight, we think that we should have, and we are frightful of moving forward. But this card has come here to tell you this in connection with the others, that despite what you may believe, you can disappoint people and still be good enough. You can make mistakes and still be capable and talented. You can let people down and still be worthwhile and deserving of love. Everybody has disappointed someone they care about. Everybody messes up, lets people down, makes mistakes. Not because we are inadequate or fundamentally inept, but because we are imperfect and fundamentally human. And expecting anything different is just setting yourself up for failure. Because remember, nobody is perfect. Well, let's look at the sword card, which is ahead of it, or above it rather. Such great cards here. This is the Two of Swords. This is the Lord of Peace. Now, what's interesting here? Well, the imagery on the card is actually quite straightforward, I think. It's about balance in a way. There are two swords balanced with each other here. Here is a sign for fire, and this one, well, turning into water, I expect. I assume this is an old scroll containing wisdom that has been built up over the period. These swords are balanced together. On this scale here, which also talks about balance, there is a feather. Now, this reminds me of the Egyptian mythology of the goddess Maat. And Maat was the goddess who, after somebody died, held a pair of scales. And on this side of the scale, there was a feather placed. And on this side of the scale, not in this case a jug, but the heart of the person was placed, because the Egyptians thought that the heart was the center of the person. And if the heart outweighed the feather, the person, their soul, would just be extinguished and they would just disappear into oblivion. If, however, the feather outbalanced the person's heart, which showed they had lived a good life, then the person joined Osiris into the underworld, and then ultimately into reunification with the divine. Now, the astrology of this card is the moon ruling the first decan of Libra, the 22nd of September to about the 2nd of October it would be. Now, this is a really happy combination, I think. Do you know your moon sign describes your instinctive or emotional energies here? This is talking to you of inner peace and the power to make decisions. Decisions regarding a situation or relationships which could engender spiritual peace here as well, you know. Well, the moon ruling Libra. With moon in the sign of Libra, you're likely to have a deep need for peace and harmony in your life. Now, Libra is also symbolized by these scales, as it turns out. And this relates to any area of your life which requires balance, and this includes your personal environment, your work, or your relationship with others. The purpose of this energy here, I think, is that of neutrality, being neither good nor bad, but balance. But things can sometimes go a little bit off the rails, because the suit of swords comes about from air comes from the turmoil between fire and water. You may also find that you could be having something of a hard time making your mind up about something and can't make a choice. It's not acute, but it sits in the background and surfaces up every now and again. You might find that you are dealing with the pros and cons of a situation. You might lack the information, though, that you need to make the right decision at the time. But when you get it, it's like the light goes on and you can see the situation for what it is, and you'll be in a much better position to make the decision that is right for you. With the Two of Swords, decisions you make at the moment should be geared towards bringing peace and harmony in your life. This is a resolution, really, at a subconscious level. Two issues, two situations, choices or relationships have already integrated at a subconscious level, and your mind now is at peace concerning two polarities. And soon you will experience outward signs and evidence of that fortunate mental integration. Maybe ask yourself what areas of life are especially important to you. You can now calmly come to the necessary decisions and say to yourself, deep peace fills my heart. Well, shall we have a look at what's in the middle here, the Nine of Discs, which is the Lord of Gain. Now, this is interesting. What can I make of this? Well, this is Venus ruling the second decan of Virgo. And this decan actually contains the exaltation sign of Virgo, which is the planet Mercury, and that occurs at 15 degrees. And that has a beneficial influence on Venus, who also seems to be pleased, I think, to be in the lunar realm. See, there's number 9 here for me, has a great association with the moon, mystically. So this is a very good card, I think, for all material matters for you. Luck is with you, and now the harvest has come in. Now at the top of this card you can see these two things here. Here's a hand holding up 5 fingers, and here's a hand holding up 4 fingers. Well, 9 they add to, and 9 is the highest number of the single digits and thus represents finalization and fruition. And of course we spend 9 months in the womb before being born, don't we? Numerologically also, 3 is a number of fertility, and 3 times 3 equals 9. So 9 is a number of tremendous fertility, which could be physical fertility, but it can also relate to projects and activities which are going on in your material world, because discs is to do with your standard of living, which includes relationships, money, how you enjoy life, what's going on around you. Now at the top, what's also up there? At the top there's also these bees here. Now, the bees of the card are also creatures under the astrological rulership of Virgo, in the sense that they are small creatures engaged in diligent behavior. At the top of the card, the 2 bees are engaged in the bee dance. You would have seen documentaries about that, where they transfer nectar and pollen along with the message of where the flowers to gather them can be found. They speak to each other of abundance and its location, so that the hive may prosper. Now the discs of this card, I'm just looking at the imagery here again, they're shown as round sections of honeycomb. Actually, this is a popular way for beekeepers to package honey, as getting the bees to fill the round frames requires less labor for the beekeeper and therefore generates more profit. And if you have ever tasted comb honey, you know that there is nothing more delicious and sweet. Honeycomb actually is also symbolic of the harvest of all of the efforts of the bees and the resultant sweetness. This is mainly on the material and physical level, but can also be a spiritual gain, because for me, the hive proper denotes your physical body, The honeycomb signifies that which is interior to the physical, the astral body. And the honey is symbolical of the spiritual body, which is composed of the choicest nectars and aromas of earthly experience. Do you know this energy is speaking to you of gain in all areas of your life at the present? There could well be something of a financial boost for you, I think, quite possibly so. Could be a financial boost. I think that you will look back at this time and you'll say, there's no doubt that my life, in 12 months' time, say, look, there's no doubt that my life today is a lot better than it was at the same period of last year, irrespective of how you may be going now. This is talking about general improvement in all the areas of your life. You could get a small financial gift. There could be finding that people who are making application to the welfare system will have their applications favorably met. Those seeking a scholarship could get that obtained. And it's a financial opportunity around here as well. Possibly business opportunity. And it's a very good card for people who are involved in sales or in the provision of services from one to one, in all sorts of areas, be it beauticians, be it architecture, be it engineering, be it lawyers, doctors, nurses, what have you. Very good energy for all such people. Now let's go to the Four of Cups. And what do we have in the Four of Cups here? Let's have a look at the imagery, shall we? Well, this is the Lord of Luxury, and it is the moon ruling the last decan of Cancer. Great association with the planet of Jupiter, which is about luck, expansion, prosperity for you during this time as well. Now there is a great wave cresting. It is overflowing at its peak of power, but about to make a descent. The Four Cups are symbolically represented by the four phases of the moon, I think, here. And here in the Four, all the four quarters of the moon phase are present in a diamond shape. At their center is a scallop shell, open to show a large pearl. Now the pearl is an object of beauty and luxury. It's one of the stones associated with the sign of Cancer. Remember, this is the moon ruling Cancer. The oldest gemstones, pearls are often a symbol of perfection. In Hindu mythology, there are some texts that say that Krishna discovered the first pearl and presented it to his daughter on her wedding day. And indeed, the pearl is associated with the luxury of weddings and coronations, which mark a high point and subsequently a new phase approaching. But with moon ruling Cancer, that's in some respects probably I'd say really one of the only great strengths of the card, because the underlying message of the card is that you want to be emotionally fulfilled in a deep way, don't you? But maybe you're going about it the wrong way. Now, the moon is associated with the principle of flux and change, and your own emotional states may be shifting like the phases of the moon. This can be talking about being careful of inertia, not pushing forward with things, or of wanting what you can't have and therefore not appreciating what you do have. It's also talking about you making sure that you don't just accept what you have without seeking growth. Now, in some respects, there may be some times where you'll feel a bit of boredom or dissatisfaction in your life. Maybe you have become too familiar with your environment, and it could be that you lack a bit of motivation, and so you need to seek some new goals. Or it could be that you are looking at material things for happiness, seeking temporary pleasure as an escape for feeling discontented, papering over that discontent. But this certainly does remind you to realize what you do have and appreciate it, because, I mean, it's obvious, I know, but there are plenty of people who are far worse off than you. But in any event, what this card is saying is that you are being given much love and devotion. Enjoy it without becoming dependent on it. Are you in any relationship in which you feel restricted? Are you expressively devoted to someone? Now, maybe after answering those questions honestly, say to yourself, what should I do? And if you are with someone, say, I enjoy being with the person's name, full of thankfulness and joy. Well, then that takes us, I think, doesn't it, to this final card here, which is just fantastic for you. And this is the Two of Wands, Lord of Dominion, which means that you are going to be having a big impact on people and on events around you. Well, this shows the double-headed eagle here, done in an Egyptian falcon motive as a suggestion of the Egyptian god Horus. Now, the double-headed red eagle is a symbol of the emperor and is often shown as the emblem on his shield. Now, above is shown an orb with, might be difficult to see with the color scheme. Can I get it in a bit closer for you? There's an orb with this red cross on it. Now, that's another typical symbol of the emperor's dominion over earth and of the four directions and the four quadrants of heaven. Now, the crossed wands clutched by the eagle are shown as an Egyptian crook, being this thing here, and as a flail. They, too, are symbols of kingship and of the pharaoh's authority and functions of a king to both shepherd and punish, to rule. Now, at the bottom here, you might be asking yourself, what might that be? Well, that's the blue war crown of Egypt, a military helmet worn both in battle and ceremonially to celebrate the god king and his victory. It is blue and decorated with golden solar discs, or the storms on the surface of Mars, and topped with a cobra, by the look of it here. And that's yet another symbol of divinity, authority, sovereignty, and claim over the land. Now, this crown was often worn in military representations, but it's also said to be an evocation of the pharaoh's divine power or godlike status on earth. Now, interestingly, this crown is sometimes called the blue crown of Mars, as its phallic shape is said to be a symbolic representation of Mars with a flared debris ring around it. The crown of Egypt is said to be depictions of or worn by the god forms, which were often represented by planets. And behind the design, a flaming symbol of Mars reinforces this general symbolism. Here's Mars symbol here. There's half of the circle with the arrow pointing up that way. This is pretty clearly saying one thing to you, and it is this, that you will have a lot of warlike energy, dynamic leadership ability. You are going to have a lot of sexual attraction for other people at the moment. People are going to find you being very attractive. What better way to end than that? Well, splendid. I really enjoyed doing that, I must say. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I did providing it to you. As I say, I really do enjoy doing these monthly readings for you, so please drop me a note of appreciation on the channel and give my morale a bit of a boost, and keep that virtuous circle going around. I've got to say, it's always good to see you each month, and we're getting ready for the next month. Now, before the next month, though, just remember one thing, and that one thing is this, and it is that You are a legend, and I look forward to seeing you again next month. So until then, it's bye for now.